Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Divorce Coach Diaries podcast. I am here in my coziest sweater today. It was very cold this morning, very cold for Texas, that is. I know that is relative. It was 36 degrees when I left the house this morning, um, and that's cold for here. Uh, it's warm now. I'm way overdressed, but I'm comfortable. So, anyways, let's get to business. Today, we are going to talk about boundaries. And boundaries is something that I talk about almost every session. And I am constantly thinking about them for my own life, and I'm talking to my kids about it regularly as well. I have a couple of examples that I wanted to talk about, and why these are beautiful boundaries, or why they're not actually a boundary when somebody is calling it that. So the first is this. Last week, my daughter came down for breakfast in the morning. This is my youngest. She's 12 and in sixth grade. And she said, Mom, I'm going to break up with, and then she named this boy, who was her boyfriend. And I said, Oh, yeah, why? And she said, Well, he's pro deforestation, and I really care about that. And also, he makes fun of people's disabilities, and I just don't want to be with someone like that. And honestly, I could have cried after she told me that. It was so beautiful. And here's what I love about this this is a genuine, clean, no nonsense, no drama boundary. And here's why. First, this was something that was only about her. It didn't rely on him to change at all. Her boundary was, this is something I'm not willing to tolerate, so I want to break up. She wasn't saying, if you don't start being pro environmental or whatever the technical term is, anti deforestation, I guess. If you don't start caring about this, I want to break up or I'm going to break up with you. She didn't say that. She just said, this is something that's about him and it doesn't align with who I want to be. So I don't want to be with him anymore. Now, okay, I understand that this feels a little bit silly. We're talking about a sixth grade relationship here. I think they've hung out at the park across the street a couple of times with their groups of friends. They text each other. I think they have one class together. I don't even know if they talk to each other at school. Probably not, being sixth grade. Okay, so I understand that this seems like maybe a silly example, but I love it because her learning how to set and hold her own boundaries will set her up beautifully in her life when she chooses to set and hold boundaries that actually do have some significant consequences. And I am so thrilled for her that she is learning this skill certainly earlier than I did. I didn't even know what a boundary was when I was 12. And I certainly didn't know how to set them, how to speak up for myself, to hold my own boundaries. So, a boundary, very, very simply, this is how I like to think of it and how it serves me and my clients. A boundary is what you will do or not do when the other person continues to be them. A boundary is not about controlling the other person. But here's the thing, the person who is on the other side of you holding your own boundary most likely will not see it that way. They might still see it as an ultimatum or you being controlling. And that's okay. They can. But you can know that you are, in fact, setting a healthy boundary. Okay, so let's talk about an example that may have come up for you in your marriage, potentially. So it's very common for people in a marriage relationship to have the expectation that the other person is also monogamous. Let's say that that is the case for you, and your partner has made a different choice. It is a boundary of yours to say, I am not willing to be in a relationship with someone who is not monogamous with me, or who is not faithful, or who cheats on me, or however it is that you want to word it. You get to decide what you are willing to tolerate or what you are willing to participate in. Me personally, I am not willing to be in a relationship with someone who is also in relationships with somebody else or other people. So that is a boundary for me. Now, there's a couple of ways that you could communicate this boundary, and they're more or less healthy. So even though your boundary comes from the same place, it feels very different depending on how you frame it. For instance, you could say to your partner, you stop cheating on me or I'm going to leave you. That is what we would call an ultimatum. However, you could also say, I'm not willing to be in a relationship with someone who is not faithful to me. If this continues, I will leave the relationship. Now, do you see how those are kind of the same elements, but they come from a very different space inside of us? One of them relies on the other person to change. The other one says, I've already decided what I want and what's important to me, so you can continue to be you. But just know that if this continues, I'm not going to stay. And here's where the healthy boundaries are based in. Boundaries are a way for us to love ourselves better, love ourselves more completely, and to love ourselves more easily. They help us stay in a space where we can show up from a place of love for us. And ironically, when we hold our own boundaries, we also are more able to have compassion for, or feel love toward, or have respect for the other person as well. Because we're not waiting around for them to be different so we can feel better, or so that we can feel like our boundary is being upheld. We get to do that job. It's an inside job, holding your own boundaries. So here's another example of a boundary. And I want to bring this up because if you are a person who has been in a relationship that has been toxic or abusive, especially if this person has narcissistic tendencies, most of your boundaries will not be spoken out loud to this other person. You get to just hold your own boundaries, and they might not even know about it. And that is okay. Generally speaking, narcissistic people will weaponize your boundary against you. And it's just not about them. And so we get to protect ourselves by not speaking those boundaries out loud. So here's an example. Let's say that you have an ex-partner who you still co-parent with, and this person texts you. And these texts are words that most everyone would agree are very unkind or cruel or verbal abuse. Your boundary might be that they don't get to have access to your cell phone anymore. You get to block them. And here's the thing, the need for supervision in communication is so common that they make court-appointed apps for it. So you are not alone if you think, this is crazy, I'm not willing to allow this anymore. Okay, so you might block that person on your phone, and the only way that they can communicate with you is through this court-monitored app. This is you holding your own boundaries, deciding how much access you give to somebody. Because the reality is, not everybody deserves full access to you. So you get to be the one to make the change and to hold your own boundary. Your boundary might be, I am not willing to accept those words spoken toward me. So what am I going to do about it? And completely accept that that other person is going to continue. They're going to continue those verbally abusive words. You don't have to accept it. And all we've done is take away access to us. And that's our job. It's our job to protect ourselves, to love ourselves. We have to be at the top of our own list. So these are really important pieces that go into a boundary. A boundary is about us and about how we will protect and love ourselves better. And it's not about the other person changing at all. That person gets to continue to be them. But we get to be us. So it's our job always to hold our own boundaries. And I hear this a lot, something to the effect of, well, this person is being really disrespectful. They're not respecting my boundary. Guess what? That's not their job. It's your job to respect your own boundary and to hold it. If you have said, I am not willing to be with someone who is not monogamous, then it's your job to enforce that boundary. This might be hard to hear, but it is actually fantastic news. It means that we get to be the one to take care of us. And we're the best one for that job. Nobody else can do it quite like we can. So I know this was a super quick overview, but again, these are the things that I find myself saying over and over again. Boundaries are about you. They're not about the other person. They are your job to hold, and a healthy boundary is put in place to protect you and to help you love yourself more. And they don't rely on the other person changing at all. They're not about the other person, they're about you. This is the most beautiful skill to foster and to practice. It is worth it. When you get good at holding your own boundaries and figuring out how you feel most protected and loved, there is such a peace that will come into your life. It's not easy. I recognize this. We're not all dealing with our 6th grade boyfriend. I know that holding boundaries is really challenging in some really valid ways, but I assure you, it is work worth doing. It is a skill that will change your life. Thanks for joining me here today, friends. I hope to connect with you on another platform. I have a new video out that I love for you to take advantage of. It's called The 3 Things I Wish I Would Have Known Before My Divorce. So you are not going to want to miss that. Go to my website, megthedivorcecoach.com/free video, and you'll be able to download that and watch it. I also have a free mini session available right now. It's normally $99 and it's free. Right now, it's called Save Your Sanity. So I would love to support you and work with you as you take the first step in saving your sanity after a toxic relationship. This is worth it. I promise you, it is possible for you to feel sane again. So connect with me, Meg the Divorce Coach, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I am on all the places. I would love to hear from you. And I will see you next time on another episode of Divorce Coach Diaries. Have a great day.